Hey everyone. So I've had a few requests over the past years to do a game room review of the retro game room, and I haven't really had an opportunity to get around to it, but 2020 being the way it is, I've got plenty of time now. So I'm going to go through everything that's in here and kind of give everybody an overview of what we have and kind of give a little quick hitter description of each one. So first of all, I'm going to pan through the room and kind of show you guys how it works, how it looks. So this started life as an office, and as I got further into the kind of retro gaming hobby, I transformed it into kind of a retro game room at the same time. So my main play area is actually here with this entertainment system, or entertainment center I should say, and I would call this kind of like my starters, while these guys over here are kind of the bullpen, right? So these are guys that I can kind of swap in when I want to reconfigure the unit. So I'm going to go through everything that's here, but I'm going to start over here. And we'll just kind of go through. First of all, I want to talk about the shelves because people ask me a lot of questions about these shelves. These are actually called Expedit from IKEA, of course. But these were purchased quite a while ago, and I think they've gotten rid of these. I don't think they sell these anymore. I think these were purchased about 2008, 2009. They've been replaced with something called Calyx, I believe. And they're subtly different. I don't think that they're as thick as these, but they still are offered in the same colors. So if you guys are interested in that, look up Calyx on IKEA and see if those work out for you to match these. These bins were actually purchased from Target, and they happen to fit perfectly as well, so that worked out really well. Alright, so let's get into everything that's on the shelves, and whether it be a console or an item, we'll kind of just give a quick description. Starting up here at the top left, this is a Famicom, Japanese Famicom, and this has actually been modded to incorporate Bluetooth for 8-bit Do controllers, or 8-bit Do, however you want to pronounce that. So it's all completely wireless now. And it's also been modified to have the Kevstress high-def HDMI mod. And these are relatively rare because I don't think there's very many of these that are actually done because most modders won't perform this work. I've got a whole video on this if you're interested in seeing kind of more details about this one and how I acquired it. But I came across this one from, I think it was Shmups. There was a guy that was doing system modding for folks, and he was getting rid of all of his kind of home stuff. I think he was in a bad way, like as far as just lost his job or something, and was trying to keep the lights on and selling some of his own personal projects. And he had some really good stuff out there, but this was the one that kind of grabbed my eye the most, so I purchased that from him, and it's been a really cool system. All right, next up, this is a top-loading NES 101, RGB modded, and with an LED light underneath the power button slider. I'll show you the back of this. This is actually a Craigslist find. The unit itself was a Craigslist find that was really dirty, and it cleaned up really nicely. So I was really happy with that. I think it was probably 35 bucks back before these started to really kind of become popular. And this, again, was modded by Retrofixes. Wesley did this one for me. And this has the Snes Multi-Out with the 3-position palette switch. This is kind of the older revision of the board, of the NES RGB board, before they did the de-jitter stuff into the board. But it still works really well, and they weren't, obviously at the time, they weren't flashing the kind of unique palettes. I think it's got garish, natural improved, and that was kind of the way it was for a while. But again, there's nothing wrong with it, and I've been happy with this top loader, and it kind of was my go-to NES play choice for a while until I upgraded, which I'll show you guys that a little bit here. Moving on, this is a Gamecube. Nothing terribly special about this one. This is just a really good shape, black and gray Ntsc Gamecube with the Gameboy adapter. And I think I purchased this from a guy on Craigslist who does a lot of garage sales, yard sales, and finds a lot of video game related stuff. And I think I was buying something else from him, and I noticed he had a stack of like 10 or 12 of these in the corner. He's like, how about 15 bucks? So I picked out the best looking one condition wise and made sure it had the digital out, because I actually do have the component cables. I didn't get those as part of this deal, of course, but 10 or 15 bucks I think got me the unit itself, and he gave me a pretty decent controller for the Gamecube as well, and I think a standard composite AV videos cables. Anyway, I'm planning on getting something modded here. Probably I need some sort of ODE optical disc emulator going on with this. I'm going to see if I can figure that out here in the near future, but for now I'm just playing traditional, original Gamecube discs. Alright, moving on. This is a Sega Dreamcast, and this is, I don't know if it's an actual launch edition, but it's pretty close to launch edition. But the most important part of it is that it can play CDR, burn discs, so it is in that serial number range that allows for that. And that's basically how I play this. Even though I am looking into mode right now for some optical disc emulation for this as well. But for now, burn discs are getting it done. The only mod that I've done to this one is to replace the rechargeable battery that's soldered in here with kind of a post system that allows you to change that out as they go bad. So I can kind of just take off the shell and replace the battery, the rechargeable battery, as needed. All right, moving down one level. This is a Sega Saturn. This is cool. Japanese import edition. And this is also known as the skeleton Sega Saturn. And it has kind of a translucent gray case. These are relatively rare. I picked this up at, I believe this was Retropalooza in Houston, Texas. And I got a pretty good deal on it. It had a matching box. And it came with two controllers. This is cool controllers. One had a gray cord and one had a black. That wasn't, great. It wasn't a great deal, but it was in my price range, and I really wanted one of these for a long time. And this is kind of a garage queen Saturn. I have another one that I play full time. This one really kind of doesn't get a lot of play, but I did want to own it, and so there you go on that. Next up, Geo AES. This is a Japanese edition, and this is not a low serial number edition. This is relatively high, but it had the motherboard revision that allowed to cut a couple specific traces and get really good RGB out of it, and it actually works really well. I actually compared it to a US low serial number that I was looking at replacing this with, and when I did the cut trace mod and compared them, they were virtually identical, so I stood with what I had. This was purchased from Retro Stockpile, who's a local Neo Geo expert modder, kind of jack of all trades for Neo Geo, and I was actually picking up a customized controller from him and noticed he was working on this at the same time. I think he was doing the Neo BIOS Masta and the Unibios 4.0. Actually, I think it was I think it was 4.0 when we installed this, but I kind of fell in love with it and ended up coming home with this as well. So yeah. All right, next up, JVC X'Eye. This is a combination unit of the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD. And these are relatively rare as well. And I purchased this one as I was getting some mod work done from My Retrofix, a guy named Marc from My Retrofix. I think it's a one-man show. And he was working on an NES RGB for me as well as another project. And he asked me, hey, you're not interested in an X'Eye by chance, are you? And I said, well, I'll take a look at it. And if the condition is right, I actually could do it. It's been completely recapped. It's been, the drive has been all dialed in. It's kind of day one functionality. And I've really been happy with this one. It's a fun machine to kind of play with and get some Genesis fix when you don't want to play in the actual original Genesis hardware. Well, Sega model hardware, I should say. Moving on, this is a N64. This is a jungle green fantastic shell with RGB modded NS1 gut. So if you know anything about the RGB mods for the N64, you know that the Fantastics are notoriously difficult for having RGB mods performed on them. So I bought a really good condition jungle green shell, which is one of my favorite Fantastic colors, and modded the guts. I sent them off to Wesley again at Retrofixes, and he did the mod for me. So I sent him both systems, and he modded the guts of the NS1, placed them in the Fantastic, placed the Fantastic guts in the old beater NS1 shell, sent it back to me, and we got this. So I actually traded the NS1 shell with the Fantastic guts off, so this is my one and only RGB N64 right now. No other mods than that. Obviously, we've got the RAM expansion card in there. Okay, moving down one level. Atari Jaguar. Not much to say about this one. It's no mods performed to it. This is just kind of a stock Jaguar. It's in pretty good shape. Works really well. Sometimes the cartridges take a couple tries to get in there, but from what I understand, that's all Jaguars. And it's in really good shape. I got this one, I want to say, from Retropalooza in Dallas about 2 years ago. And I had a friend that was working a booth there, and he knew I was kind of in the market, and he had found one early. And he's like, hey, we're about to open up. These go pretty quick. Do you want it? It's $80. I said, yes, absolutely. Came with a controller, power adapter, no AV, a few games, but $80 is a steal for one of those. Even at that time, it was a really good deal. All right, moving on over here. This is a PlayStation 1. This is not the one, the original model or the launch model that had the composite out video on the back, but this actually is a really good shell, really good shape, works pretty well. Every now and then I have problems with the disc, but I'm looking at getting an OD for this anyway, so I really wanted to kind of get the best shell I could. I want to say this was another Craigslist find. I think it was $15 or something like that. So to get a really clean PlayStation 1 shell, it's kind of becoming a little bit more difficult. They're kind of becoming more ratty and yellowing, so I was happy with that purchase, and when I get the ODE completed on that, that'll be a really good combination. All right, moving on. This is a Neo Geo CD, and this is not the highly sought after CDZ version. This is the one with the top loading kind of tray, I guess, or not even really the tray, just the pop top version. And you know, this is a decent machine. I actually bought this system because of they had two minty fresh CD controller pads, which I really wanted, and I just kind of chipped in the extra amount. I think it was extra 25, 35 bucks for what two controllers were going for to get the whole system anyway, right? So I got the controllers, the system, and one of them was brand new. It hadn't even been opened, and one of them was in really good shape. The other one was really good shape. So that worked out really well. It's abysmally slow. I do have this modded to be English only. It was originally Japanese model, and I'm not really interested in playing in Japanese. It doesn't have a switch or anything like that. It's just internally modded to always display in English. So moving on. This is PlayStation 3. This is the 80 gig model that allows for full backwards compatibility with PS1 and PS2. However, that being said, the quality for PS1 and PS2 is not great, and I wish I'd known a little bit more. I kind of had buyer's remorse after buying one of these, and I actually paid a pretty good amount for this one. It was a boxed kind of complete edition, and I really wish I would have known more about how bad the actual backwards compatibility looked. I actually, when I play PS1 games, I revert back to my PS1, my actual PS1 through RGB. It looks infinitely better than this. But anyway, it's an interesting piece to have in the collection, and they're starting to finally kind of come up in value a little bit. I think they kind of leveled off for a while. I think PlayStation's kind of coming back around a little bit now, so I might hold on to it just to see how that works out. Next up, this is an Ori fighting stick. This is a Sega Saturn fighting stick. And I kind of won this. I don't really say won this, but it was gifted to me in a white elephant Christmas party that was from a friend of mine named Rob Neva, who's got a much better YouTube channel than mine for all things kind of retro gaming and even modern gaming. And I might put a link to his video if you guys are interested in checking it out. Shameless plug, I did a playthrough with him on a collaboration where One Life, No Death, Castlevania Bloodlines on the Sega Genesis, so if you guys are interested in seeing that, take a look. It's not really a speed run, but it is a competent run with no deaths. Anyway, this is really cool. This has been modded. Actually, Retro Stockpile helped me mod this one as well. This is a Sanwa stick and Sanwa buttons. And I was going for the kind of Sega Astro City vibe here. And I think I pulled it off really well with kind of the yellow, I think that's the start button. And that was kind of stock, but the pink and green I switched over. I think I had pink buttons or something before, but anyway, these are all Sanwa now. And that actually required some significant modification to the interior of the shell. We basically had to epoxy the whole assembly in there and get it in there just right, dead center. But anyway, it came together really well, so props to Retro Stockpile for hooking me up with this one. And it's a really good way to dust off the old Genesis and get some really good kind of arcade stick style action in there. I'm gonna go down one level and then go back to the left. So this is, speaking of Retro Stockpile, he's usually my go-to for everything Neo Geo related, mod related, and this is how I actually met him, from purchasing a controller that he does custom style for and they work for the AES or the MVS, and it used to be customizable all the way to anything you wanted. You could choose the graphics, you could choose, you know, the stick type, and these actually have some Mitsu parts in them, both the buttons and the stick, and octagonal gate there instead of the quad gate. But I actually had this one custom made, so yeah, I think this is actually, if you go to his eBay store, he'll have this model out there fairly often, but I was the first one to actually commission one that looked like the the AES style aesthetic with the all black. And I also have another one of these. I'll pan over to here. And I have a video on these if you guys are more interested in seeing in-depth look at all these. This is just the MVS version of the same stick. Identical, Samitsu parts, same stick, different color buttons, but same brand buttons, just with the MVS theme. But they're interchangeable between the AES and the MVS. So if you want to check out the other video on that, I won't spend too much talking about those. This is the original Neo Geo arcade stick controller. This came with I think it was my Omega CMVS that I purchased. And it's in really good shape, but I really don't enjoy using this stick. So it's just basically kind of helping create symmetry between the other sticks in the entertainment center. So, all right, moving on. We've got some games here, and people always ask me, where's your walls and walls of games? And you know, I don't really have that. I don't have the space for that, for one, and second of all, I'm more of a kind of a EverDrive kind of player, or ODE for the CD drives, because it's just easier and it doesn't take up space, and obviously to incorporate all the games would be phenomenally expensive. So I just pick my favorites, or I pick ones that I think are iconic examples of the the system. So for instance, I really like pack-in games. So if I have a system, I really try to acquire the pack-in game for it. Even if it's not a great pack-in game, I always try to make sure that I at least have those. And so there's plenty of stuff back here behind these boxes as well. I won't get into all of this. That's a mint and box version of Nights into Dreams with the Saturn 3D controller that I purchased from I think it actually came from Classic Game Fest in Austin, Texas. There was a guy that was opening up a full case of these, and he was trying to sell the whole case and nobody was biting on it. He was like 9 or 12 inside there, and finally he just cut the tape. He had enough people ready to buy every one of them in the box, and I was there at the same time. And so I got lucky. I think it was 80 or 90 bucks on that, which is not very expensive for a complete brand new version of that. Some Neo Geo memory cards. That was brand new in the box when I bought that, but I've actually used it since then. Some EverDrive boxes back there. Moving on, some more games. And again, I don't have a huge collection of games, and these aren't all of them, but these are kind of some of the ones I want to display. And this is Final Fight CD. I actually have a lot of loose Sega CD games, and I'm always trying out some aftermarket cases to see how those look in the collection, and those actually looked okay. Some Game Boy Advance games, some Switch games, and more stuff back there. Looks like an NES cleaning kit you can kind of see. But anyways, those are those. Moving on to some of the drawers. I'll just pop one of these open. I won't go through everything in here, but you can see I've got a brand new OG Xbox controller. That's not the Duke, that's the S. But I don't have an OG Xbox right now, but I'm looking to get into that. Some 32X games. You can see some Sega Genesis games down here. Looks like some Jaguar games. Some boxes for some things I purchased recently. It's got brand new Bloodstained for Switch that I haven't even opened yet. So that's that one. People always ask me what I do with my controllers, and so this is kind of an example of one of my controller boxes, and I try to keep them set up by kind of quadrants here. I've got my Dreamcast and Neo Geo going on over here. I've got my Sega Genesis going on right there. Sega Saturn, and it looks like there's a brand new Sega Dreamcast controller underneath that. TurboGrafx, and below TurboGrafx is my Sony PlayStation stuff, or original Sony PlayStation. And yeah, I mean, they can get kind of unruly with controllers, so you kind of got to make sure you kind of organize as you place them in here. Here's some of my Nintendo stuff. That's a brand new Super Nintendo. That's the one, the second revision of the controller that came with the junior version, and some other really good versions of the standard pad. Jaguar controllers here. There's a few of those in there. Switch. There's a brand new GameCube controller that hasn't been opened yet. And I've got some more GameCube underneath that. There is a dog bone that's never been opened. I try to keep as many as I can in brand new condition, so in case I have something happen to my originals and they wear out, I've got a brand new one on deck ready to go. And I have a brand new N64 on the bottom, and they're underneath that atomic purple, I think. So anyway, that's kind of an example. This goes deeper. I'm not going to tear it apart, but you get the idea. Same thing going on for cable management. People ask me, what do you do with all your cables? And what I usually do is I have a whole box of these, and it's filled all the way to the top. And I'll have hefty bags, and they're marked on each one what the system is. And so I'll house AC adapters, anything like composite cables, S-video cables, RGB cables, anything that goes with it that's not a controller, a game, or the system goes in these bags. And it's a really good way to keep this organized as you collect. Okay, so last drawer here, I think that's actually a retro game. There's my 32X, so when I want to build my Tower of Power, it's ready to go. So we got an EverDrive 64 in there. I've got some Sega, this looks like Sega CD stuff down there. Let's see what's under here. Let's get Sega CD reproduction snatcher case. And some Switch stuff, some PS1 stuff, some 32X. That's a RAM backup cart for a Sega Saturn, the original RAM backup cart. All right, so the last cubby here, that's retro gaming, we'll go into here. This is kind of backup stuff. I try not to keep duplicate systems too much, but every now and then through the course of trades and things, I'll come across something where I'll have duplicates. I've got an additional Model 1 Sega CD here that's been fully recapped, dialed in, new drive, band, everything. This was actually done by Marc at my Retrofix. He helped me out with this one, and we got this one going. I was in the midst of purchasing another one, and I had this one that was broken, and he's like, well, let's go ahead and try to fix this one too, and it came out working flawlessly, so now I've got two. That's a mint condition TurboGrafx 16 right there, and I'm a condition snob, so if I find something that's perfectly mint, I'm going to find a way to make it happen to get it. And if anybody knows anything about TurboGrafx, they scar really easily with the cords, so they kind of have an acidic kind of breakdown quality that goes on there, and it kind of ruins the shell of the case. This one has none of that. So it's not my daily driver, but I do have it in the backup here. I think that's a Model 1 Sega Genesis in the bubble wrap. That's the, I think a VA2 high definition graphics. It's in really, really great shape. Same situation as the TurboGrafx. I don't use it because I've got another one that I'm not using every day. That's an NEC PC Engine CD-ROM. It's a little yellowed, but it's been completely recapped and it works perfectly. Functionality-wise, it's fine. Inside here, I'm not going to open it as a PC Engine. That is actually Core Graphics. And back there, I think that's actually an old Discman that I used to raid for the laser assemblies that actually go into the NEC CD-ROM and TurboGrafx CD-ROM. So if you ever need a laser replacement, you can acquire them from old Sony Discmans. Okay, so right here I have a CRT. This is actually a recent find for me. This is the Sony 13, what is the model on this one? Let's see if I can pull this up real quick. It is the KV1311CR. And so I just recently purchased this, and it's really a computer monitor from the 80s, but it's a 15 kilohertz television set as well, so it can do 240p, 480i. It can really handle any standard resolution. So it works really well for any system, but the cool thing about it is that it actually has native RGB. I'm gonna see if I can get around and show you guys the side panel here. This right here that looks like an IDE port kinda is actual proprietary RGB input for this Sony TV. And I just need an adapter, which I haven't purchased yet, from Retro Access. I see they make one, to interface with this from an RGB standpoint. So I'm really excited about that. But in the meantime, I've been using it with composite cables, and it's actually been worked out really well. It's in pretty good shape. It's got a few nicks and scrapes here and there, but I got a decent deal on it. And CRTs being what they are now, they're starting to go up in price, and to find something like this is kind of a unique piece. It's not perfect. It has a little bit of a geometry issue, and I have not found a way to access a service menu. I'm not sure if there is one, so I may have to just probably have this recapped and maybe see if I can have somebody who's better at CRTs figured out. But if I need to play a light gun game, or I really just want to bask in the CRT goodness, I've got this ready to go now. Okay, so moving on to the actual play center. This is the entertainment center. I actually purchased this on Craigslist, and I don't know the brand, but doing some research, I think I found that it was actually something that Best Buy was offering in the early 2000s, and then kind of discontinued it when flat screens became more of a thing. But it's actually built to be strong enough to hold a CRT, so which is kind of cool. This is actually tempered glass, I think, right here for these 3 shelves. And so what happens here is I'll swap in whatever systems I want to play, and move them back to the shelf when I'm reconfigure it. But I found that this configuration is probably my favorite one. But that said, I'll pop things out from time to time. So right now I'm running the Omega CMVS. This is from Arcadeworks. So let's go ahead and take a look at these systems. And I'll actually start with that and work my way up. This is the Omega CMVS consoleized Neo Geo arcade hardware. And this was done by a company called Arcadeworks. And I actually purchased this on eBay. I didn't purchase this through them because at the time I looked for this, they were sold out. They go through these droughts where they don't have them, and then they do. And so they were on this really large drought, and I went ahead and bit the bullet and got one from eBay. And it was not cheap, but acquiring one of these is never cheap because there's a demand for them, so you don't usually find a great deal on one. But it did come with a 120-in-1 multi-cart, one of the bootleg multi-carts, which I've traded since then, and actually upgraded to a Neo SD from Terra Onion, and this is the Stone Age Gamer Edition, and which is really cool. To be able to play the entire Neo Geo library on original hardware has been really cool, and I have not had any problems with this. This system was modded in the sense that I did change the green LED to a blue LED, as you can see right there, and I think it was originally 3.0 or 3.2 Unibias, and I upgraded it to the 4.0 Unibias, which was not terribly difficult. And that's really the extent of what's going on with that. I did purchase an additional cable from Retro Gaming Cables. It's a higher quality shielding that eliminated some buzz I had on menu. So if you guys have an Omega and you have the standard RGB cable from them, look into getting the Retro Gaming Cables version because it's actually a big improvement. Moving up one level, this is the TurboGrafx 16 with the TurboGrafx 16 CD-ROM attachment and IFU interface unit. This is modded in the sense that it has all new capacitors, it has the jail bar fix, and I actually had this one. This was done by Marc from Retrofix. He actually incorporated a composite out right here, which used to be the RF area. So he actually gutted that, and it's got composite out, and that works really well for the times when I don't have it working with the CD interface, which is the RGB. This has actually been RGB modded. So as long as I'm connected to the base, the interface unit, I've got RGB modded. The RGB mod on this was actually done by Retro Stockpile. He had this interface for sale, and I said, hey, can you RGB mod it? He said, I'll give it a go. And he pulled it off, and it works really well. And we've got this is EverDrive, Crix EverDrive for TurboGrafx, Turbo EverDrive. And that's, moving on to the next one, that's it for the TurboGrafx. This is a Super Nintendo. This is the one-chip version, so it has the really clean RGB out. And no mods other than that. It hasn't even really been recapped, but I've got that as a possibility for something I could do in the near future. It's got an SD2 SNES there, and that's usually how I play most of my games on that one. Moving over here, this is a Sega CD. I believe this is a VA6 high definition graphics model. So this is kind of the one that it's got the Sega trademark screen logo, but it has really good balanced audio, and it's in pretty good shape, and it's made it to a Model 1 CD, Sega CD. This has been completely recapped, new band, day one drive functionality, all that good stuff. This was actually done by Dragon's Horde, who I actually bought it from somebody who had it modded from Dragon's Horde, but he gave me all the paperwork, and it's really ornate the way they do it. It's really cool. I haven't worked with them personally, but after seeing how good of a job they did on this and seeing kind of the level of detail they put into just their receipt and their warranty work, it's pretty impressive. I want to see if I can get through to them at some point and maybe have some work done. And I know Smoke Monster, I don't know if you guys ever watched Smoke Monster, he works with Dragon's Horde a lot for a lot of his mod work as well, so that's obviously a good sign. Okay, moving down one level. This is Nintendo Entertainment System. This is the original Frontloader. This one has been modded for RGB out, Tim Worthington's RGB card, and this one is the newer model that does have the dejitter built in, and it has when I actually had this one built, this was Marc at my Retrofix again. We flashed the new color palettes, all sorts of things like that. Things that I couldn't do on my top loader originally, I was able to do on this one. I included the ability to incorporate the extra audio channels from the Famicom, which I had not done on my top loader and wished that I had. So I can play Castlevania 3 Dracula's Curse the way it's supposed to be played. And it's got the red Crix EverDrive N8 in there. This is back when you ordered from Crix and you didn't know what color you're going to get. And I got the red shell, which is actually kind of cool. I was hoping for the gray, but I've actually come to like the red after a while. And originally the system was a Craigslist find. I think it was, and this was recent. This was probably in the past year. It was $50 for a boxed, complete NES Frontloader. I think it was the Super Mario 3 Challenge set or Challenge Edition with the box. And I'm not a big box guy, but hey, if you've got it, I'll take it for $50. I thought it was going to be fake because it sat on Craigslist for like almost the full amount of time. And I showed up and the guy was like, yeah, I wonder if he was going to kind of buy this. So there is good deals to be found out there if you look. All right, so we got this everything is running through RGB through this OSSC, which is an open source scan converter. This was purchased from Video Game Perfection, but I upgraded the shell from I think it's Keiko, K-I-K-O. They make these really cool translucent shells in multiple different colors. I thought the kind of greenish yellow was my favorite one. And it works really well. I was a Frame Master guy before this, but I used them both kind of for a while and realized that the OSSC could do everything that the Frame Master could and then a little bit more, except for S-Video, obviously, but I don't do a lot of S-Video, so I sold it at kind of the peak of its heyday where they just announced they weren't going to make any more. Microsoft said they weren't going to make any more. And I got I think it was like $550 for a package deal for my FrameMeister, so no regrets there. I actually made money on that. But anyway, I'm all OSSC all the time now when I'm gaming on an LCD, LED, flat panel, modern television. So obviously this is running through the OSSC right now. This is, the model of this TV is a TCL. It's a 43-inch. And I think it's 4K HDR. I don't have the model right now, but I might put it in the video description here if you guys need it. But it works really well. It's a really cheap TV. I bought this at Target, and it was on sale, and then they had a March Madness deal going on as well that took like an additional 20% off. I think I got it from right at $200 about a year and a half, 2 years ago, something like that. And anyway, the good thing about this TV, if you know anything about this particular model, the retro gaming community has kind of embraced it because it absorbs all the crazy wonky signals that the OSSC can throw at it and does it really well. I mean, it's not a flawless panel. I've got some backlight bleed in mine and, a few little kind of nitpicks that I have with it, but for, right at $200, You cannot go wrong with what this thing can do for retro gaming. And the ability for it to have 4K actually helps for my modern setups, which I do have a couple modern systems here as well. This is the Xbox One S. I'm sorry, this is actually the Xbox One X. I've got an S in the living room my son plays. And so my son's a big Xbox kid, and so we can kind of get together and do, you know, Minecraft or Roblox or whatever else is going on these days for the kids. He's not a Fortnite kid, thank God, so we don't play that one. But I've got the opportunity to do that as well. And back here, tucked behind the TV, kind of hidden away, is a Nintendo Switch. So both of these are hooked up and ready to go, and ready to play at a moment's notice. So this rig works pretty well. The only downside to it is that I'm just basically having to swap out the RGB SCART cables whenever I need to play. So I'll power down, pop in the new cable, turn it on, ready to go. They're all powered in, so I don't have to worry about power or anything like that, but I do have to worry about swapping the SCART cables around into the OSSC, which is one thing I would like to change. I'm investigating possibly getting like a G-SCART switch or some sort of SCART switching switch that can allow for me to leave these all intact. I don't even know if I have enough room back there, and I'm running out of power too, so I might have to play with that. All right, so moving on. I keep an on-deck circle over here to stay with the baseball analogy that basically says, hey, I don't want to really break down the rig and move anything around, but I would like to play an extra system. So I'll just bring it over here to the right-hand side of the entertainment center. Right now, I'm doing that with the Sega Saturn. This is a Model 1 Sega Saturn that I purchased. This was another Craigslist find for me, and I purchased this from this really crazy-looking meth head guy. And when he showed up, I thought for sure I was not going to buy what he had to offer. He had a really ratty box. And then he opened it up, and the Sega Saturn itself looked really pristine. He had a few games, and I walked away with it. I was really surprised. So again, Craigslist, you can still surprise yourself if you get out there and really try. This is modded. This has just recently been modded, in fact, to include a Fenrir ODE. So complete drive replacement. The CD drive has been pulled out and replaced with you can see the little top part of the micro SD card right there. And this is the Fenrir. And this is a 3D printed kind of middle portion that you can actually buy from their site as well, that actually kind of gives it a seamless look. Had a lot of fun with that. The Fenrir, I'm always telling people that if you've got a Model 1 Sega Saturn and you're looking for an ODE, you really can't do any better than the Fenrir. It's almost always in stock now, at least as of today. It's relatively cheap, and he instead keeps pushing out these firmware updates that really keep improving the overall quality of it and the features and everything. And his compatibility was already pretty high. There's a few games that have issues, but he's really working on dialing that in too, so I can't say enough about how much time he's been spending on that. So again, if you're looking for ODE, Fenrir is worth investigating if you have a Model 1. This is actually, so just quickly, this is not a Capcom 4 meg RAM expansion card, but it is the shell of that because I really always like the look of that. But what this really is a Kai Lite. This was originally a Action Replay. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember that for a second. Action Replay has been reflashed into a pseudo Saturn Kai Lite, and that works really well. It gives you region support for all regions and allows you to play burns as well. So I swapped this one back and forth to my Skeleton Saturn as well when I need to use it. I'm only using it here for the 4 meg, extra RAM capabilities for the games that require that in Saturn. But if I need to play burn CDs on my Skeleton, this is cool Saturn, I just swap this over there and use that as well. So that's why I leave that configured the way it is. Okay, so let's go over some stuff there on the walls, kind of some basic kind of artwork and stuff that I have here. These were purchased from eBay, and I just did a search for Retro Game Room one day and came across these. These are acrylic kind of nameplates for Neo Geo, Sega, and Nintendo. And they're actually multiple layers. There's kind of 2 layers of the acrylic on there. It kind of gives it like a mild 3D effect. It's really cool. And I didn't really know what to expect when I got these because they looked cool on eBay, but sometimes you get this stuff home and you're like, but these actually look really cool. They were really high quality, and I was really impressed with how they turned out. And they do kind of a nice addition to this little corner of the wall. This over here is a wall scroll that came from Game Over Video Games, which is kind of a local chain that we have here in town that does retro gaming, which is cool to have because at any given time you can go to multiple different locations and search for retro games at a store specifically designed for retro games. So Game Over Games, here's another one I got from them as well, Mega Man Legacy Collection. And up here, these actually came from ThinkGeek. These are canvases that incorporate the art design of some of the original NES games. And I think Design was bought by GameStop or something, which is probably not a good idea. But I don't even know if they sell these anymore. In fact, I had some trouble getting the last one. I think I had problems getting Metroid. It was always sold out, and I had to wait for it to restock. But I think these are cool. These turned out really well. Again, I don't know if they're still sold or not, but I'm glad I got them when I did. This is just standard office stuff. I actually work from home full time now, so this is kind of where I spend a lot of my time, regardless if I'm gaming or working. I wanted to show a really cool kind of art picture. This came from Classic Gaming Fest, I think, 2 years ago, I believe. This is a live action interpretation of Super Mario Bros. 2, obviously. It's done by Priscilla Kim, and she signed the print there for me when I purchased it. And she seemed to specialize in the female form, so no surprise that Princess Peach is front and center there. But she had some licensed stuff, but not a lot of like Nintendo stuff, and I think she was a little nervous about it, and she even said she wasn't sure how much longer she was going to be able to get away with selling it. And sure enough, I saw her at a convention later, and she was no longer offering anything Nintendo related, so I'm glad I got into this. It's really cool. It really grabbed my eye, and I thought it was really well done, and I'm trying to do more of this in my game room. I'd like to see more like art type prints rather than just, you know, kind of wall scrolls and things like that. So I'm kind of transitioning into that now. I've got a big blank wall right here that I want to fill in with something, probably Castlevania related, but I haven't built that yet. I'm going to probably commission somebody to make something really cool for that wall. So this is it in the daytime, and I'm going to switch over quickly to show you guys a nighttime shot, because I do have some LED stuff kind of mounted behind the TV and in some of the cubbies and things like that. So I'm going to switch over right quick and show you guys the night shot. And here is a shot of the setup at night. So I turned off the TV for now so you can kind of get a full effect of the color transition going on behind the scene behind the TV. And those are just LED strips mounted to the back of the TCL. And down here, these are actual little bubble pod lights that are mounted in the entertainment center above each one of the systems and the OSSC as well. So you can kind of see the cool effect that happens when the blue light hits the OSSC. It gives the black light effect going on there. And these can be changed colors as well. These can go through red, green, blue, white, but I think blue looks the best for a gaming setup. And so I'll turn on the TV here for a second, show you how it looks with the TV on. Anyway, so that's kind of how it looks in a normal dark playing scenario, dark room. And here is a shot of the shelving. The cubbies, some of these top level cubbies are blue, with the same pod lights that's used in the entertainment center. So kind of a neat effect. Works out really well. Blue is very game roomy. So that's it, guys. That's the tour of the game room as it stands in 2020. If you guys have any questions, comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll do everything I can to answer them as quickly as possible. Thanks for watching.